Here is the law of logic as it applies to reality. I remember speaking, please bear with me for those of you who are familiar with this illustration, but it is the most incisive one that I can give to you. I remember speaking in one of the United States western cities when one of the professors was attending the lectureship and asked me to speak against an Eastern religion, which I said I would not do. He said, I'm an American, I belong to that other Eastern religion, let's just call it X. And he said, and I have taught this X religion in my lectures and so on. I want you to speak on the subject why you do not subscribe to the dogma of religion X. And my students will take you apart after your lecture. I said, no, I really don't want to do that. I said, I've learned when you throw mud at others, not only do you get your hands dirty, but you also lose a lot of ground. And he accepted that. I said, but I will tell you why I am a Christian. I will speak on that subject. At the end of the talk, he was quite vociferous in his denunciation of what I'd said, and he basically took me to task at the front of the lecture room, attacking the fact that I didn't understand logic and so on. I said, look, we're not going to get anywhere. Let's go out for lunch. You pay, and I'll pray, and we'll get together. So we got together for lunch, and he brought a professor of psychology with him, and the psychologist and I finished our lunch while the philosopher hadn't even started his. His food had become congealed in front of him. And he had taken off these paper placemats of all the tables to draw out his argument. And basically what he was trying to say was this, that there are two kinds of logic. Actually, he was wrong, there are more. But he said there are two kinds of logic. One is the law of non-contradiction. The law of non-contradiction means if something is true, the opposite of it is false. If something is true, the opposite of it is false. It is called an either-or logic. If I say to you, for example, there is a red car parked immediately outside the steps there, if that statement is true, the opposite of it is false. I am not at the same time saying that red car is not parked out there. It is either true or false. I've just given you a simple illustration. If it is A, then it is not non-A at the same time. You basically establish the either-or dogma. And he says, Ravi, that is the law of non-contradiction, that is either-or, that is a Western way of thinking. Westerners think either-or. I said, I disagree with the last statement. Why don't you rub it off? He wouldn't do it. So then he moved to the Eastern way of thinking. He said, in the East, you do both and. It is a dialectic. You don't say either this or that. You say both this and that. Karl Marx used the dialectical system. It was not either the employer or the employee. You put them together and you find a classless society. Both employer and employee join together in a classless society. Funny thing, they never show you one, but they talk about it. That there is a both and dogma in the dialectic, two poles of an argument there. And he says, you see, Ravi, he said, the dialectical system is Eastern. The dialectical system is Eastern. And I said, why don't you cross out that last line? Because I don't agree with you, but he refused to cross it out. What he was trying to say was this. I had talked about the many contradictions in certain pantheistic worldviews, very strong contradictions. And he said, you see, Ravi, if you took the dialectical system to be true, anytime you came into a contradiction, you won't be puzzled by it. You'll say, this is the way they think. They make opposite statements and both of them are right. So if you ask one follower of religion X, is God personal? He says yes. You ask a second follower of religion X, is God personal? And he says no. You go to the third person and say, which of these two is right? And he says, both of them. He says that's an Eastern way of thinking. So you've got the either or, which is Western, the both and, which is Eastern. And he was waxing eloquent on this, going on and on and on. Finally I said, can I say something to you, sir? He said yes, and he picked up his knife and fork and started to cut into his first morsel of food. And as he was cutting into the morsel of food, I said, here's what you've told me. There is an either-or, which is Western. There is a both-and, which is Eastern, and you want me to study religion X, right? Now, here's my question to you, doctor. Are you telling me when I'm studying religion X, I either use the both-and system or nothing else? Is that right? That I either use the both-hand system or nothing else. Is that right? Do you know what he did? He put his knife and fork down, and with a very nervous expression, I wish I had the cameras there to film it, he says to me, the either-or does seem to emerge, doesn't it? I said, yes, in fact, I've got some shocking news for you. Even in India, we look both ways before we cross the street. It is either the bus or me, not both of us. Do you see what he was doing? He was using the either or with which to prove the both and. He was telling me I either use this system or nothing else. And he was staggered to realize that he used it every day. So it's got nothing to do whether it's Western or whether it's Eastern. It's got everything to do with that which best reflects reality. And when Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, no man comes unto the Father but by me, it is a most reasonable statement. The question is it true? It is a most reasonable statement because truth, by definition, is exclusive. The moment you affirm something, you exclude anything that challenges that. And the way you prove the law of non-contradiction is that by just talking, and if anyone else stands up and challenges you against it, by challenging you, they are proving you right. That it is either what you're saying or what they're saying. Now, the Easterner understands this malady. That's why the Easterner says, when the mouth opens, all are fools. But the problem is his mouth opens to tell us that. Or as one of the famous mystics said, he who knows does not speak. He who speaks does not know. Well, did he speak? And if he spoke, then he does not know. And if he does not know, does it really matter if he spoke? The law of non-contradiction must apply to reality. If you deny the law of non-contradiction, you may as well talk about a one-ended stick. It cannot even be pictured, leave alone stated. Because the opposite poles are very much in your mind of an either or there. Now, it is therefore more logically possible that all the religions in the world are wrong. But it is not logically sensible to say that all the religions in the world are right.